More of the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
Welcome back in. We'll put the Jets talk on the back burner. Let's get into the Eagles. Les Bowen does a tremendous job covering the Eagles for a very long time for the Philadelphia Daily News, and he joins us right now on the Zach Gelb Show. Eagles at 3-2, a two-game losing streak, losing to the Lions and the Redskins. Les, welcome back to the show. How are you?
It's good to be here, Zach. I'm fine.
Well, thank you for coming on. So the big story this week is there's a lot of backlash with Doug Peterson sticking with Big V at right tackle. Are you okay with that decision?
More or less, yeah. I don't think he can possibly be as bad as he looked Sunday. From what people like Brandon Graham were talking last week about how well he did it, how hard he was to play against in practice and so forth, and I don't think they were lying. I mean, I just think he kind of was overwhelmed by the moment, and you know, you want to. I don't have a problem giving him another chance.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Is there a better alternative?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, Alan Barbary is not a right tackle. He's a guard more than a tackle, and he's a left side guy more than a right side guy. So you move him, you put in Wisniewski at left guard. You're kind of changing a lot there. There's the center and the left guard have to work out their interaction. The left guard and the left tackle have to work. You're really changing the whole lineup when you do that, and instead of one spot. And theoretically, if Vaitai can do a decent job, you know, then you've only changed one spot there. But that wasn't the case Sunday.
And also on Sunday, I know everyone is going to be able to go after Vaitai because he's the rookie and he's the easy target, and I'm not excusing it. He didn't play a good game. We all know that. But that rest of the offensive line was not good either. It was a really bad performance all around. So what happened with the other four spots?
That's a very good question. I think the momentum got going early, and they just really were back on their heels. Jason Peters had a terrible day. I thought they had some success running, but they really couldn't. For the first time all year, really, they couldn't protect Carson Wentz. And, you know, but they didn't have the ball was another problem. Their defense was a huge problem, maybe even a bigger problem than the offense. They went more than 19 minutes without running a play, which is hard to do, really, in football. It entailed them running back a kickoff for a touchdown and an interception for a touchdown. But still, the offense was off the field for a third of the game.
It's really amazing how they only lost this game by 7 points, because everything with how bad they were, maybe that's a reflection on Washington. The fact that they were still in this game, it's remarkable.
Yeah, you know, Kirk Cousins, I don't hate him, but he's going to throw a pick six, and that's kind of who he is. And Washington needs to kind of understand that going into contract negotiations this winter. But, yeah, it was the Eagles only scored 6 offensive points. It was not a competitive performance by them.
So you have this kid, Big V, Halipulivati Vaitai, only 23 years old and is in Philadelphia. And when you don't play your first good game, you know the next week you're going to have to face the music and the fans are going to be all over you. Still, he's only 23. That was his first game. Maybe he could play a little bit better. I know it's going to be tough against the Minnesota Vikings. But as a coach, how do they keep his confidence up? Because I'm sure his confidence isn't in the best place right now.
Well, that's a good question. We'll be asking them that tomorrow. I think what you've heard so far from Doug Peterson and what they said, you know, after the game and on Monday, is the template that he played better as the game went on. That, you know, they'll continue to help him with chipping. The problem with that is, if you're using tight ends and running backs to chip, the Eagles' wide receivers aren't that good. The running backs and the tight ends, a lot of their passing game is predicated on that. So the more of that you use for blocking, the less of it you have to run patterns. And so, you know, there are a lot of things that have to be worked out here. But I don't think his confidence is going to be a huge problem. He doesn't seem to me to be a guy who's going to get real down on himself. I think he knew he was facing a tough challenge Sunday in Ryan Kerrigan, not having played since the preseason. This is a guy who didn't play in a 3-point stance in college at TCU. He was in a 2-point stance, you know. So there's a lot of work here to do, but I think he's big and strong and quick, and he ought to be able to figure it out eventually.
And I know there's some people that say Carson Wentz played a bad game on Sunday. I don't think he played a bad game. Where do you stand on that? Because I was once again impressed with his footwork and once again his quick release.
Yeah, he could have hit a few more throws, but he hasn't, like I said, faced that kind of pressure in the pocket in the NFL. Everything was going haywire around him. His receivers weren't getting separation. It was a tough spot. I mean, and he made 3 or 4 amazing plays. But, yeah, he looked a little bit more like the preseason training camp Carson Wentz because he was playing in that kind of a game. It was a ragged game where his team wasn't doing what it needed to do. And he's not in a position yet where he's going to, take control of the game and will a team to win if the offensive line and the receivers aren't playing well. There aren't very many quarterbacks who do that. I don't think Andrew Luck is doing that right now. He just was not able to take the game on his back, and I don't fault him for that 5 games into his NFL career.
What's going on with Zach Ertz? I know he was injured earlier in the season, but what's going on with him now? Because I've not been impressed.
Yeah, they haven't targeted him very much. I think a couple things. One is they are using him to block a lot. The other thing is that it seemed like Sunday, I think Doug Peterson's defense was, Ertz was like the third read in the progression a lot of the time. Well, Wentz didn't have time to get to any third reads in his progressions. He did well to get 1 read and maybe 2.
Lucky if
before
that.
somebody was grabbing him, so they're ripping his jersey off. So I think that's part of it. But this has become a little bit of a pattern with Ertz. He's been poised for a breakout year for about 3 years now, and there's going to come a point when you're past your due date. I don't know. I would like to see that breakout year. I would like to see things, really start to look up starting Sunday.
You bring up the head coach and Doug Peterson. First off, did you like the decision to punt? And second off, what was he thinking calling that timeout?
Yeah, I didn't like the timeout at all. That was kind of bizarre. I mean, you call the timeout so you can save some time on the clock, but you call it earlier. I think he let 20 seconds roll off before calling the timeout. 4th and 24, you're not going to pick that up. You do have a chance to get the ball back with 40-some seconds left. Maybe that's better. Neither option is any good, really. I mean, it's just not, by that point, you're not going to win the game anyway. But yeah, I would not have called the timeout the way he did and then punted. I don't know what I would have done. That was probably Wentz's worst sequence right there. He took sacks on 2nd and 3rd down. They were coverage sacks. He needed to throw the ball away or run or something, and he didn't.
Les Bowen with us on the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920, the Jersey. All right, Les, let's get to that defense. One concern that I had going into this season with Jim Schwartz, and I'm a Jim Schwartz fan, was the lack of discipline because those Detroit Lion teams, even on the offensive side of the ball, were not disciplined when he was the head coach. How concerned are you with the lack of discipline right now because we're seeing a lot of flags these last 2 games?
That's a good point, Zach. I'm getting there. I mean, Fletcher Cox, who is the most mild-mannered, non-dirty guy in football, 2 weeks in a row has gotten a crucial roughing the passer penalty that's led to a touchdown. It's like he's become Sue all of a sudden in Detroit. When Schwartz was his coach, Cox is going to start stomping on people or something. I don't know. I don't like it. I know he wants people to be aggressive. That's the personality he prefers. He got Eric Rowe out of here basically because Eric Rowe, who's a very promising corner and played well for the Patriots Sunday against the Bengals, he got him out of here because he wasn't that type of personality. Aggressive is fine. Philadelphia likes aggressive, but stupid is another thing. And, you can't lead the league in penalties called per game. You just can't and be any good.
Yeah, Rowe had a big breakup against A.J. Green. The Eagles could have used that on Sunday, no question about that. So going a step further with Fletcher Cox, they pay him a whole lot of money. We know that. I was so surprised he didn't register a tackle. I've seen Fletcher Cox play for a while, and he always makes plays, and it just wasn't his day on Sunday. How does he go without making a tackle?
Well, I think they were doubling him a lot and kind of daring the other people on the line to make plays, and they weren't. And, Benny Logan got hurt in the second quarter, so you're playing like Bo Allen and Destiny Vallejo and people like that. Vinny Curry playing inside, which was kind of a disaster, I think, against this team. It just didn't, they did a great job against Fletcher. Their guards are pretty good, really, and I think that's why the penalties. I think in both these games he's gotten very frustrated by the blocking and what he would say holding, and has reacted viscerally and cost his team points. But they got to, there again, Schwartz has to do something. Move Fletcher Cox around. Have him stunt more. Get other great players, the J.J. Watts and the, other premier defensive players in the league face the same kinds of things, and their coaches find ways to get them freed up. And that is something Schwartz really needs to take a long look at.
There was so much emphasis about going to this 4-3. In the first 3 weeks, everyone loved it, and I still think it's the best for this team, and it helps out the defensive linemen. But one player that has not benefited from the switch to the 4-3 was Connor Barwin. And I'm just not seeing a lot of positive play from Connor Barwin. What is going wrong with him right now in that switch?
I thought you were going to say Jordan Hicks, but Connor Barwin is a good one, too.
Yeah, Hicks, too.
Connor is more of a 3-4 linebacker. I think he's better with looking around and with his head up than he is with his head down and his hand on the ground. I don't think he's been terrible. He was terrible Sunday, but I really don't think he's having a bad year. I think he was a big part of what they were doing early in the season when they were playing so well. I think he sets the edge well most of the time. I think he gets good pressure if he doesn't get sacks all the time. But as a 3-4 linebacker, it seemed like he was really good at coming in late on the rush and getting his hands up and blocking passes. And we're not seeing that from him as a 4-3 end. And I think they do miss that. But it is a different animal for everybody. I mentioned Jordan Hicks. Everybody thought he was going to be a great linebacker last year in the 3-4. In the 4-3, he had terrible problems Sunday getting off blocks. And that sometimes, because they play wide 9 a lot, he has offensive linemen just taking full-speed runs at him, which, is kind of tough when you weigh 240 pounds. But, still not the same guy that he was in the 3-4 right now.
How much do you factor that being the injury that he suffered last year and maybe him still being a little bit rusty?
I got to think he's all right. It was a pectoral strain. It wasn't an ACL or anything. I don't know, but it's been stunning to me. For a few games there, they were using Stephen Tulloch a lot in his spot, and I'm thinking, Stephen Tulloch is 100 years old. How are they equating him with Jordan Hicks? But really, they didn't use Tulloch against the Redskins. I think Tulloch got one defensive snap down the goal line, and Hicks just looked very, very ordinary, or even less than ordinary.
All right, Les, let's get to the matchup this week. It's going to a lot be made out of Sam Bradford returning to Philadelphia. I still give the advantage to the Eagles in that trade, and I know that the Vikings have benefited from it, and they have a good chance to get to the Super Bowl this year. We'll see how they'll continue to play for the rest of the season, but I still thought it was a no-brainer for the Eagles to go to Carson Wentz. Give me a thought about Sam Bradford returning to Lincoln Financial Field this Sunday.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating because you have in Sam a guy who's pretty smart who learned Doug Peterson's offense pretty thoroughly. I mean, he was very comfortable in it by the time he was traded. So he can impart all of that knowledge to his coaches in Minnesota. And even though this is a game between teams that don't often play each other, I think there's going to be a degree of familiarity, really a little bit on both sides, because obviously the Eagles' defense knows Sam Bradford pretty well too. I'm not sure who that favors, but it's going to be quite a game. I think Minnesota's defense is so good that you do have to. The Vikings are favored, and they should be favored, but they aren't going to go unbeaten. Somebody's going to beat them. They're not the greatest team that anybody's ever seen. And offensively, without Adrian Peterson, they really don't score a whole bunch of points most of the time. So, this would be, if the Eagles could win this, this would turn things around in a hurry. Right now, people are looking at their schedule. They go to Dallas next week, and people are wringing their hands. And where is there another win? This is awful. I think they're playing like 3 teams in a row that will be coming off byes, which is kind of tough. But it's an opportunity, I think, for the Eagles. They do have the game here. They'll be able to hear the quarterback call the signals. Vaitai won't be working on a silent count or anything like that. And, they ought to be able to, I think, at least make a better accounting of themselves than they did last week.
If you had to break it down in terms of percentages, how many fans do you believe will boo Sam Bradford on Sunday?
I saw that raised from another station on Twitter today. And I was kind of like, why would you boo? What did he do? He didn't trade himself. He didn't say, boy, I hated Philadelphia.
The offseason,
I guess you would boo him just because he plays for the other team, but I don't really think there's a lot of, it's not like he did ask for a trade back in the spring, which was entirely understandable to me, given that he, wanted a long-term deal somewhere. But he quickly, when that didn't happen, he quickly resigned himself to the situation and was a great teammate to Carson Wentz, helped him every way he could, didn't mind in the preseason when we all wanted to talk to Wentz after the games instead of him. I thought he handled it beautifully, and I don't see any, you boo him because he's the Vikings quarterback, I guess, but as far as booing him for any other reason, I just don't get it. I would not, no.
Let me ask you this. Let's say if Sam Bradford still was the quarterback of the Eagles, are the Eagles still at 3-2 or they're worse off?
Good question. I think they're about 3-2. I don't, Wentz has been very good, but he hasn't really, gone out and won any games by himself. His stats are pretty much similar to Bradford's in Minnesota. The receivers wouldn't be any better if we had Sam Bradford here. It's hard to make these comparisons. I think they would pretty much be the same team, really. Maybe Sam Sunday would have found a little more, would have not looked like a rookie the way Carson did a few times. But like you said, that was really not a 7-point game anyway. The Eagles should have lost that game by more than that. And so I don't think Sam Bradford would have changed that game materially.
Before we let you run, as Les Bowen joins us right now on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey, you see so many more ticky-tack fouls now, and I can't define pass interference, especially after this weekend. Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie covered the wide receiver better than anyone, and then Julio Jones gets mugged. I was watching the game, though, last night with the Jets and the Arizona Cardinals, and there was just flag after flag after flag. And McDonough, the play-by-play man for ESPN, and you very rarely see a national TV play-by-play man criticize the official. You just barely don't even see it. And he even suggested, hey, maybe that's why these ratings are down, because you don't want to watch this. I thought that was funny because he was broadcasting the game. You have covered the NFL for a long time. Are there just too many calls?
Oh, absolutely there are, Zach. I could talk about that for a long time, but I won't. And I think part of it is replay and the quest for perfection on every call. And perfection isn't attainable. How many times have you watched a replay for 5 minutes from 3 different angles and still had an argument with somebody over exactly what it showed?
Every Sunday.
I covered hockey for a long time. And there was a time in the 90s when hockey put in a rule where nobody's skate could be in the crease if a goal was scored. And it was a stupid rule, but every time a goal was scored, you'd go to video replay to see if there was some way to wipe it out. And that's kind of where we are with the NFL. Any kind of great play right now, it's like, did he complete an affidavit? Did he, it's just, it takes away from the spontaneity. Everybody remembers with the hockey rule that what killed it was that goal that the Dallas Stars scored to win the Stanley Cup in Buffalo. And suddenly after the game, it dawned on everybody that you could have a Stanley Cup winning goal and players jumping into each other's arms and, the ice, and then, you'd have to go look and see if the goal counted or not. And nobody wanted that, and so they got rid of the rule. Because that's not drama. That's not excitement. It's like being in a doctor's waiting room or something. And that's kind of where the NFL is right now. Every play is, maybe there's an inch of white here underneath his heel. It's just, and I know why they do it. It's because of HD TV, and people at home are able to see things that they weren't able to see, 20 or 30 years ago. But I really think it slows down the game, and it doesn't really make it better.
And the celebration stuff, it needs to stop. Vernon Davis, how Vernon Davis got flagged was an absolute joke, and it completely changed the complexion of that game, and he did nothing.
Yeah, and it was funny because Vernon Davis, was a great player with the 49ers, and he's kind of at the end of his career now. He hadn't scored a touchdown in a long time. Apparently, this was something he used to do when he scored for the 49ers, and there was never any problem with it. But now it's a problem. He just hadn't scored a touchdown in a while. He didn't know he couldn't do that anymore.
I'm sick of the name Dean Blandino, too. But Les Bowen, I'm never sick of your name. We appreciate the time as always, my friend.
Thank you, Zach. Take care of yourself.